What's up, guys? So let's take a look at the markets going into this week and see what we have setting up here. So let's head over to take a look at ES. So actually, Bitcoin moving higher this morning. So bouncing right off the 200, strong volume. And so far, off of Friday's close, we're up about 6%, but this is so far is just a mean reversion. So um, looks like here we came down to the 200 and then we're coming back to the 20, back to the 21, potentially maybe just the 10, but we've got a lot of resistance here. So we may want to consider looking to sell short here on Bitcoin when we rally back to that 21. If we go to the weekly chart here, you can see we had this really nice push off of these buy signals here off the weekly chart and this flag. It was a massive cup and handle, which ended up turning into almost 100% return on this push. Now we're pulling back and likely going to form the next weekly squeeze, which is either going to take us to the upside or the downside, of course. You can see here, see this one fired off to the downside after we had this strong move up. So we had a weekly squeeze that fired off to the upside and then lost momentum. So what I'm looking for is a similar pattern. Um, and so let's see this. I think Bitcoin is kind of dead in the water until we get the next weekly squeeze, which starts to form. So that's Bitcoin. Anybody that's looking to trade crypto, I don't think there's going to be much of a setup until we either get a sell signal or the buy signals have worked pretty well on this particular name. So you can see here, buy signal here, buy signal here, buy signals here. This one didn't work out too well. And then buy signals here and gave us pretty nice moves up. So for now, what we're looking for is until we can break that 21 on the daily, we have to be leaning bearish, but I think there's not going to be much actionable play until we get a weekly signal. So that's that. Let's go to SPY. So if we want to mark out some key levels here, um, what we're looking for is the weekly chart, something that's been pretty important that I reviewed on Friday during live trading a little bit, is the fact that if I clear this stuff off here, the fact that we had the last time we broke the weekly 21 EMA was back in October. And now you can see that ever October 2023. So it's been over a year, almost a year and a half. And you can see we bounced at the 21 here. We came down below it, reclaimed, we gapped well below it. About $20, so 4% below it, and reclaimed it in the same week. So and never closed below it. And then you can see the rally we had after that. We had a pullback and a retest of the 21, and we bounced clean off that. Same thing here. We had a gap below it and came up and filled it. So at this point, that line in the sand is going to be that 21 EMA. So that's going to be a very important level. And that also kind of lines up at the moment with 590. So 590 is going to be a very key, important level going forward on whether we're going to see a move to the upside or the downside. Right now, we're in a trading range. We've been in a trading range since the beginning of November or mid-November. So now what we're looking at is when we're looking at just the daily time frame, what we notice is we've got where we came up and well, okay, so let's mark this out. So we've got a good bit of downside support. So that's the first thing to notice. Now, if you watch my video, weekly watch this video, we were talking about right here about a market top. And in that video, it was a few weeks back. If you go and watch it, we discussed that I was looking for a move up in the all-time highs and us to ultimately fail at that level. So far, that has held true. Now, but what we see is um, what we're seeing is now we had the sell-off into after that, and we came down into this pretty heavy support level, and it happens to be the roughly that 585. So 585 seems to be the key level to pay attention to. So like if you want to go and mark that this is the level personally I'd be paying attention to. So you can see that's what triggered this rally here after we had the break and retest here of the election news. You can see that's where we bounced all in here. We had a shakeout down to 580 and then bounced, had a strong rally from there, got stopped up at 510 and then gap down, reclaimed 600, got stopped up at 510, got stopped up at 510. And so really now here's the two levels you want to pay attention to. So we've got the 610 level up here, which we're far away from, and then we've got the 585 level. So we did end up trading between 585 here, or sorry, the high and the low of Friday. So I think the next actual setup is I expect usually Mondays can be pretty bullish. But with that being said, I think that we may see another inside day, not necessarily an inside day as most people quantify it. I'm thinking we're going to have another close within the high and low of this major wide range candle here. So I am thinking that might be the next thing. So um, keep an eye on that. So I'm thinking we're probably going to see continued price action in between these two levels. So the high right there, so 598, and probably where we're going to start seeing some more action is 600. Now, why are we saying that? Well, look at this. We're pulling back, and I think a lot of people were surprised by this pullback we had in here to 600 or down or this sell off here, and then how we got bought back up. But you have to be aware that, sorry, I'm trying to switch that back to similar color. So we had this pull or this move down, and then we got bought back up. And I think this caught a lot of people by surprise, but most bearish engulfing candles, at least within the past year, have been met with dip buying the next day. And that's what we saw. So when we look at the lower time frames, we can see here that we kind of flushed through low, got bought right back up, and are now above the 21 EMA on the 30-minute chart. But most importantly, you have to look at it in the context of what's going on with the daily. So when we're looking at the daily, you can see we had this move down into 585. We got bought back up, which some people may have been surprised. But if you go put on and you have Keltner channels, you can see here oops, if I change this to, you'll see we went to 2 ATR and now we're headed back, likely headed back to the mean. So I think in the most immediate future, the next trade within the beginning half of this week will be looking for a mean reversion, a move back into 600. So that's the most immediate play that I'm seeing. We might get some consolidation on Friday, but I think that, or on Monday, and kind of stay within this range. But I think the next trade that we can look for is that move into 585 or 600. So, and then your major levels to for swing traders to start getting more active, you're going to be wanting us to either find a way through 610 or find our way through 585. And then you've got one more support level here at 580. Now, I lean more towards the 585 level just because when we look at the weekly chart, we have the 21 EMA here at 590. So really you can start to look to get bearish below 590. And if you look at the 30-minute chart, when we broke 590, that's when we started to get this accelerated sell-off. And you can see these high volume bars that came in after. And then we bounced at 585. So really the zone is extremely key, the 590 to 585. Then we go to QQQ. QQQ bouncing at 500 as expected. So the major over under level, plain and simple, look for 500. Okay. That's the major level. Similar story here. I think that we're going to get a mean reversion back up to, based on how moving averages move, what I would expect is probably a move closer to 520. So this one has a little bit more um, of an extended move to make to get back to the 21 EMA. But it looks like unless we have a really extreme move, we're going to get, uh, how should I say this? We're probably going to get a moving average cross to the downside and have a move back to 585 here. I keep saying the wrong numbers. 520 on QQQ. Okay. So this is going to be the one that you want to pay attention to. So like if I and like if we want to make that one red, and then the key levels here that we want to pay attention to for QQQ um, are really, really clean cut, in my opinion. Um, oops, it is 540 and 500. And we're trading in between a range in between them and any of these levels in between. So, like, if you look at this, it's pretty symmetrical. So you can see this is the center of the range, and then this is the bottom of the range, and this is the top. And so I think that the next point of action here is we can look for consolidation here the next couple days, and then looking for a move up into 520. And then from there, we're going to see where we go from there. You got to kind of take this market day by day, but that's what this is looking like so far. And Bitcoin seems to already be front running that idea of taking the bounce at 80K and then having that reversion move back to the 21, which is right around 900 or 90,000. Okay, now when we're looking at this, that's a really bullish candle from Apple. Um, this one on the weekly chart has printed some buy signals. It looks pretty good here. Earnings, let's check out the earnings, how the earnings have been doing. So earnings, EPS has increased pretty substantially. 6.1, 6.13, 6.75. Okay, so they had a pretty big jump last quarter, and then on top of that, they had a pretty big jump last quarter as well. Um, so in this bullish thesis, I think that Apple may be the best route to go in terms of going long. This is the strongest looking one. It's above the 21 EMA. Let's just do a quick glance. So Apple is the only one out of these names here that's trading above the 21 EMA. That's a pretty bullish sign. So we had a high volume buyer candle here. Um, and you can see each high high volume buyer candle has led to buying the next few days. High volume buyer candle has led to move the next few days. Um, Same thing here. I'm not going to draw them out. Same thing here, led to the gap up. So these high volume candles have led to some pretty decent moves in the past. So with a weekly squeeze on the back of it, we can look to play this short term at least into 250. So you can play the leveraged ETF, and that will be good about almost 10% gain on the shares. So that's probably a primary idea going into this week. NVIDIA. So this one had a strong bounce. Volume is weaker than the day after earnings, so we have to be aware of that. But what did happen is we had this gap down into um, below, we had this gap down below 520 or 120, and then got bought back up. And so once we reclaimed the low of yesterday or the previous candle, that was kind of a buy trigger, especially on the volume that was coming in. We did 150% of average, which is pretty strong. Um, we go out to the weekly chart. If I throw on the 50, you'll see that we were bouncing right at the 50 as well, right around that 120 area. So the 50 EMA or SMA on the weekly chart has been pretty important as of recently. You can see the last time we really tested it was back in here to the upside and acted as pretty strong support. Um, and so that one looks okay. That's one of the better looking ones. The other one that I also am somewhat interested in is Tesla. So this one, when it gapped below, reclaimed it. That was a buy signal. We talked about this on Friday. We talked about NVIDIA. We talked about NVIDIA. We talked about Tesla, how these could be triggers to catch a move back up into the 21 EMA. The risk to reward on Tesla is much better than NVIDIA, considering it triggered that move above 120 and is already trading at 125. And 130 is the pretty much the target. And so it's only about $5 more to the upside for that one. Tesla, though, you can see here we triggered the reversal. I think there will be another opportunity to get in when we break the high of day here tomorrow, or if we break and reclaim 300 and wipe out the people that took the break of 300. I think we could see a pretty swift move back up to 340. So that's a potential trade idea for this week if we can get a trigger. If as long as this low remains valid, we could see a pretty quick move back to the 21 EMA. So that's what I'm anticipating. And all of this is being built around the idea of the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. Can we move back to the 21 EMA, this kind of EMA or moving average cluster right there? Same thing here, which we're not that far from right now. But you can see the 50 was acting as pretty key support back in here. So constantly delete that level and just pay more attention to these past price moves where the 50 has acted as a key spot. If we break above that, more importantly, I would say break above 600, we're looking at a stronger path to 610. So that's what I'm watching. Then Apple, we talked about this one. So that's probably my first and favorite trade idea just because of the relative strength that it's been displaying. We look at the weekly chart. You can see we printed some buy signals back here. This one, it worked out well and had a nice move from 237 up into 260. And so now here, maybe we could get a breakout, potentially a new high. Okay, so the way I'd be looking at it personally is that we had if QQQ does decide to make a move back to the upside and break out, which I'm not fully convinced it will. I think the first thing that's going to make a new all-time high based on the current price action of these names here is going to be either Apple or Meta. And I think the better setup as of right now is Apple, and it's the one that's trading above its daily 21. So I'd want to lean towards that one. We can run through these other names here, take a look at the weekly charts. Yeah, like I said, Apple is the one that looks good there. Nvidia discussed. Um, Now, so we've kind of talked about the ones that I find interesting. Um, Amazon looks like just a reversion to the 21. Mark that 200. So as I was looking at the charts last night, something else that I noticed. So short candidates, just in case we have the scenario where SPY does go back to the 21, and that just is a mean reversion and we make a lower low, that would really confirm that we're probably headed lower. Um, and the reason I say that is because, like, here's an example. So here's an example where we got the breakdown, and then the retest ended up failing where we didn't make a new low. And so that didn't trigger downside. Here, it triggered downside because we had the retest and we broke down. Um, Here, you can see a similar story. We traded below it. It looks almost exactly identical to this right here. Look. So we broke below the 21. This one just happened a little faster. Broke below the 21, flushed below, came up, retested, and then ultimately failed to make a new low, which gave us this pop back up. Now, in this case, we ended up losing the moving averages again and then firing this daily squeeze to the downside, which if we go back here, it was FOMC that triggered it. But you go take a look at the 4-hour chart, and we had a downside squeeze that fired off to the downside here, and that gave us a move down. Um, or was it similar story, 4-hour squeeze, fired it off to the downside. Um, so I'm saying all this to say that uh, this retest of the 21 is very important on this move back up. So when we retest this, we've got a lot of resistance right here, but if we can get through it, that's a pretty bullish sign. And the first things we want to look to buy is probably Apple and then potentially Meta. Right now, for mean reversion trades, we want to look at Tesla and we want to look at Nvidia is kind of the move's kind of over, so you're a little late on that one. And those were showing relative strength on Friday. So that's kind of what I'm looking for going into this week. Um, if so, let's take a look here. So rates have just been falling. Let's take a look at that real quick. So TNX, it looks like we zoom out here. It looks like potential stage 3 action. So um, let's see if we can get a rollover here. This 200 seems to be very important in terms of the trend of which way we go. So you can see here we lost the 200, turned into stage 4. Had this pretty nice sell-off. And then same thing here, we got above the 200, traded around it for a while. Then we got some buy signals and moved into stage 4 or stage 2 after stage 1. This is starting to look like a stage 4. or sorry, stage three. So a topping pattern. So let's see. Did we top out at five? Is that what's going to happen? The only thing that's in question here is that we've had all these moving average crosses to the upside here on the monthly chart. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. But I think that if this, we'll have to pay attention to the daily chart, pay attention to the weekly chart. What do these signals end up saying? Because the monthly chart does look like this might be a bullish breakout to the upside. But the daily chart is saying maybe this is a stage three. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Probably the best move is to wait till we break and hold above break and hold above this 475 and then really five. And then advanced decline line. This shot up a lot as of Friday. We made a higher low. So maybe let's see if we can make a new high on this advanced decline line this week, and that would be pretty bullish. So right now I'm looking for a reversion to the mean for SPY. And then, sorry. And then I think that from there we kind of just wait and see. I think we don't have too many answers from there, um, of where that's the next spot where we'll pick our spot, right? So if we move up, so really, what's the take-home message I want you to take with you? Personally, we're still in chop. We're still in a box. You've got your over-under levels in red. You've got the same thing here with SPY. Then what you're looking at is um, mean reversion this week. What do we do from here? Now, if we break these lows, then I'm going to be looking to get short. So current moment, I want to play a mean reversion within Monday or Tuesday, looking for us to rally into the end of the week. Then if we end up breaking these lows and breaking 585, really, the key level that I'm telling you about, then I'm going to look to be going potentially short. And so just to wrap up, my last or the two short candidates that I'm watching are the fact that Microsoft broke its 200 is the weakest out of all of them. 590 seems to be the last opportunity of support for this guy. Um, so we'll want to pay attention to those key levels right there. And then if we break there, then we're probably going to be looking for just keep using your psych levels. So, and then the last one is probably the most bearish looking one is SMH. This one looks like it might be breaking this range, this trading range to the downside. And you can see the relative strength line has continued to just head lower here on this name. We're finally losing the 50. High seller volume. We definitely didn't get bought up like we did in the previous day. So you can see that was low volume buying action right there. Or well, not low volume, but in comparison to the previous day, um, there's a lot more. You can see how price how this is a lot larger candle than this one. So this means that there's a lot more fight in this candle here. Um, so what am I looking for? Well, this daily squeeze just fired off. I'd like to see another daily squeeze form right around this resistance area. And I would like to go short on daily signals to the downside. This is going to take a few weeks to form, though, or at least a couple weeks. But all right, guys, I think that's all I've got for you. So mean reversions on the S&P 500, QQQ this week. From there is a decision point of the midway spot through the chop, which would be 520 on QQQ. SPY, it would be 600. And then from there, that's our major decision point is really SPY 600. And then major levels to watch 585 on SPY, QQQ 500. And then if you're bullish, look at Apple. If you're bearish, look at SMH. So, all right, guys, hope this helps. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for the markets this week.